Welcome to the Overlooked Guardians. In this series of videos, I'm building rosters of the most overlooked, or underrated, player seasons by using a crude statistical methodology. No vibes or opinions here, just cold, hard numbers and facts.
Could you kick up the 43 engaged?
So how does this work? Basically, I'm finding the top player seasons by WAR by players who never landed in the top 5 in MVP or Cy Young voting. And I'm also excluding any individual season that received a single MVP or Cy Young vote. You can check the video description for the fine print if you really want to nerd out. Or go watch the Overlooked Dodgers video where I lay this all out in depth in the intro. Okay, let's get into it and see if we can discover some weird-ass players from Cleveland history. Catcher. John Romano, 1962. Right off the bat, we've got a guy that I'm guessing no one watching this has ever heard of, unless you're a real Cleveland old head. This guy had some pretty great power hitting seasons for some mediocre Indians teams in the early 1960s. First base, Ed Morgan, 1931. Eddie Morgan appears to have been a bit of a fancy lad at the time. He had come from wealth. His father was J.P. Morgan. Actually, not that J.P. Morgan, but his father was the owner of a box factory, and he was married to a debutante. Real rich guy stuff. After Morgan had a tremendous year in 1930, slashing .349, .413, .601, and driving in 136 runs, he was offered a less than stellar pay raise and said, "If that's all the money I can make after the year I had last year, I realize now that I am foolish to stay in baseball when I can make so much more in business with my father." Not saying players shouldn't have been paid more by ownership, but I can't imagine this sort of attitude ingratiated him with the common fan. Morgan had a precipitous decline after his excellent 1931 season and was out of the league in 3 years, after which he started an investment firm with his dad. Andres Gimenez, 2023. I'd say Gimenez is one of the more underrated players in the league today. This guy has averaged 5.6 WAR over the last 3 seasons. As is typical with underrated players, much of his value comes from him being elite defensively. Third base, Odell Hale, 1936. Name guy Odell Hale had a great year in 36, but his most memorable moment in baseball was his involvement in a bizarre triple play in 1935. With the bases loaded, Joe Cronin smoked a line drive which Hale was slow to react to, and it hit him in the head, ricocheting up in the air. The batters all took off, but the ball was caught by the shortstop, who then went 6-4-3 to complete the triple play and end the game. A walk-off headshot triple play. Shortstop, Johnny Peralta, 2005. The gloriously moon-faced Johnny Peralta, who we talked about in the Lugs episode. Peralta had a pretty solid career as an okay defensive shortstop with some pop. Not sure why he didn't get any recognition for his excellent offensive season in 05 when he ranked 13th in the league in WAR, but couldn't break onto this list. Left field, Stephen Kwan, 2022. We talked about this in the Yankees video with Brett Gardner, but the defense-first left fielder gets no respect. But Kwan also had a great offensive year in 22, his rookie season, on-basing .373. Center field, Brett Butler, 1987. This was an excellent season, but Brett Butler started a 5-year run of getting MVP votes the moment he left Cleveland.
Cleveland!
Right field, Shin-Soo Choo, 2009. Not sure why Shin-Soo Choo didn't get some love for this excellent 09 season where he ranked 12th in WAR among position players. After his career, Choo appeared on this Korean show called The Running Man.
Oh, Choo!
And I have no idea what's going on here.
이건 뭐예요?
And neither does Hyunjin Ryu. DH, Ken Keltner, 1944. Keltner had a great offensive season in 44, but he was known more for his glove work. So maybe we ought to put him at third and Odell Hale and his head balling at DH. Keltner helped to end Joe DiMaggio's hitting streak at 55 games in 1941 when he made 2 excellent backhanded plays on hot shots down the line. His throws beating DiMaggio by a step at first both times. If not for that, the streak would have extended to 73. Backup catcher Yan Gomes, 2013. The first ever Brazilian major leaguer, the Yanimal put up this 4.2 WAR season in just 88 games. There must have been a lot of excitement about the young catcher after that showing, but unfortunately he would never be as valuable as that with the glove or with the bat, even with the benefit of more playing time. Second base, Ronnie Belliard, 05. Also talked about Belliard in the Lugs episode as a rare big-boned middle infielder. Belliard had a great defensive season in 05 while also smashing 17 homers. Shortstop, George Strickland, 1953. This was a real one-off season. Strickland never played near this level either offensively or defensively in his career. Outfield, Roy Cullenbine, 1943. Talked about Cullenbine in the On Base Guys episode. He was a base-on-balls savant who was severely undervalued due to his low batting average. This guy couldn't find work after a season where he OPS'd .823 and even got MVP votes. And certainly a big reason was his ugly-looking .224 batting average. But in 43, he had one of his best years, slashing .289, .407, .404. Third base, Buddy Bell, 1978. Buddy Bell is a pretty underrated player overall, a guy with a legit Hall of Fame case in my opinion. He's the victim of being a great player on terrible teams. Bell played for the Indians and Rangers in the 70s and 80s, and then the Reds in the mid-80s. He accumulated 66.4 WAR over 18 years while never playing in a single postseason game. Bell is just under the average of Hall of Fame third basemen in WAR. Looking at Jaws, which averages a player's career WAR with their 7-year peak WAR, Buddy fares less well, as he was more of a compiler and his peak was not so elite. Still, he's right there with Hall of Famers Dick Allen and Home Run Baker. Buddy also gave us one of my favorite baseball and life truisms. Never say it can't get worse. Spoken like a guy who spent his whole life on terrible teams. And to round out the bench, we've got Toby Harrah, who's kind of like the off-brand Buddy Bell. These two had mirror image careers. A third baseman who played for the Rangers and Indians, but not at the same time as Bell. In fact, they were traded directly for each other in the 1978 offseason. Harrah was a similarly underrated guy who put up a very solid 51.5 WAR in his career, and just like Bell, never played in a single postseason game. The two would play together briefly when Harrah returned to the Rangers in 1985. Starting pitching, Johnny Allen, 1936. This guy could have gone on our loose cannons roster as he was a total hothead. He often went on tirades against opposing players, coaches, teammates, and especially umpires. And he also, in 1940, conspired to have his manager fired. More on that later. Strangely enough, after retirement, he became a minor league umpire. Greg Swindell, 1988. Swindell was a solid pitcher with a long career who put together his best season in 1988. He was 5th in the league among pitchers in WAR, but, he played for a team that was a literal joke at the time. Mel Harder, 1932. Harder had a great run from 32 to 39, and he was part of that conspiracy with Johnny Allen on the 1940 Indians to oust their manager, Ossie Vitt, who was despised by his players for bad-mouthing them in the press and for letting his wife dictate personnel decisions via the use of astrology. Ownership refused to get rid of Vitt, so the players ignored him and developed their own signs and strategy. The press dubbed these revolting players Vitt's Crybabies, the Half-Vitts, or the Boo-Hoo Boys. Tom Candiotti, 1988. This is pretty much ditto what I said about Greg Swindell.
Fun times in Cleveland again. Still Cleveland.
Of note is that the Candyman portrayed fellow knuckleballer Hoyt Wilhelm in Billy Crystal's TV film 61 about Maris and Mantle. Steve Gromek, 1945. Gromek was a guy who struggled to get playing time on some Indians teams with great pitching staffs. Gromek was good, but he was always either an odd man out or the contingency plan. But the highlight of his career and his lasting legacy happened in the 1948 World Series. Gromek got the Game 4 start and pitched the game of his life. A complete game, 2-1 win. Larry Doby hit the decisive home run, and in the locker room, Gromek hugged his teammate in a moment of pure joy. But it was more than that, of course, because this was 1 year after integration. A black and white player embracing, cheek to cheek, was shocking to most Americans. Doby cherished that picture, citing it as the high point of his historic career.
That to me is the most significant thing that I can think about in terms of happiness that I had in baseball.
Bullpen, Sid Monge. I wasn't really aware of this guy, but his 1979 year is 11th all-time in WAR for a reliever at 5.6. Mike Garcia, 1949. Mike Garcia became part of the Indians' super rotation in the 1950s along with Feller, Lemon, and Wynn, but in 49 he served a swingman role in his rookie season, putting up 4.5 WAR and leading the league in ERA. Al Benton, 1949. Benton had some really great years as a swingman for Detroit and at the end of his career for the Indians. He had a sordid and tragic life post-baseball. He got in trouble with the law for allegedly stealing a car and for forging checks, eventually leading the FBI on a car chase in 1957. Then he died in 1968 in an explosion at the hotel he was managing. Benton also appeared in the film The Kid from Cleveland. This was sort of the bizarro Major League, a Cleveland Indians sports movie that lionizes the team and features almost the entire 1948 champion Indians roster, including our friends Steve Gromek, Ken Keltner, Mike Garcia, and Mel Harder, and stars child actor and future Dr. Jacoby portrayer Russ Tamblyn.
Dig yourself out of the shit.
I know the curse of Rocky Colavito is the Cleveland World Series curse, but I'm just going to go ahead and say that this shameless Hollywood victory lap is the actual cause of Cleveland's World Series drought since 1948. The curse of the kid from Cleveland. There's a pretty high quality version of this available on YouTube if you want to be like me and torture yourself. As this Letterboxd user said, atrocious. Pretty much.
I'm going to give it 5 bags anyway, though, because I think that the world does need a laugh.
Dan Spillner, 1982. I don't remember this guy, but I guess relievers on last place teams aren't the most memorable. Spillner had a tremendous year in 82, piling up 4.4 WAR in 133 innings. Rafael Betancourt, 2007. Betancourt was a solid reliever for 12 years who was lights out for Cleveland in 07. Ernie Camacho, 1984. Camacho was the rare dual threat, a mustache and glasses guy. He had this great relief season in 1984. Okay, let's see how this team stacks up with the other teams we've done in this series so far. On the strength of a very strong pitching staff, this team takes the top spot at 129.9 WAR. Thanks for watching, and please be like Miggy here and like and subscribe.